AITA for jumping out of a bathroom window to avoid my mom's attempt at forcing a reunion between me and my ex-fiancé. Some context. Sarah, my ex-fiancé, and I had been together for 4 years. We had planned to marry in November 2020, but I found out at the beginning of this month that she had cheated on me. She pleaded with me to give her another opportunity, but I cut her off. The issue was that being cheated on is absolutely emasculating and humiliating in my opinion. As a result, I never informed anybody that was the cause for our breakup. Sarah, for obvious reasons, did not inform anybody that we had broken up because she cheated. So many people, including my mother, have blamed me for the separation. They just saw that I dumped her out of nowhere. After discovering Sarah was cheating on me, I imposed a tight no-contact policy on her. Sarah has been speaking with my mother and has persuaded her that if we could only chat one more time, we could reconcile. My mother has been putting a lot of pressure on me to speak to Sarah, but I've told her that there's no way we'll ever get back together. So I'm going to my mother's house tonight since she's entertaining relatives for Christmas Eve. I've been there for a while, chatting with my aunts, uncles, and cousins, when the doorbell rings and I see it's Sarah. I inquire as to what is going on, and my mother responds that she asked Sarah so that we might sort things out in the spirit of the holidays. I'm furious now because the only way to explain my side of the story is to tell everyone I was dumped. In front of my whole family, I was completely humiliated. So, when my mother is going to the front door, I go into the restroom. My mother begins to tap on the door, telling me that I need to come out and speak to my ex like an adult. I'd yell, knock off the window screen, and get in my vehicle to go home. My mother just phoned to say she's breaking connections with me because of my conduct, she's obsessed with me leaping out of a window, and that Sarah will always be like a kid to her. My sister later phoned to chastise me for ruining Christmas. I sobbed and informed her that Sarah had cheated on me, which was why I had abandoned her and didn't want to see her again under any circumstances. She labeled me a jerk who was lying to protect myself. Is it true that I'm in the wrong? Story 2. AITA for telling my sister to stop using nonsense baby talk. Alana, my 34 female sister, 27 female, has always been fairly childish, but in the past year she's improved her stupid baby talk game. She was seeing a man last year who I believe enjoyed it, so that might be why, but it's practically every other line, and it's driving me insane. Some examples. She came at my place and asked if she could put some juice in the fridge, which turned out to be juice. When she saw my 6-month-old weeping, she said, "Oh no, don't cry." And she's asked whether we have any ice in the freezer ice. You get the picture. It's never ending and really vexing. As to my elder sister, 35F, and I have decided to tackle this by pretending we don't understand what she means until she says it right. My mother does nothing about it since Alana is the youngest and has always been baby little. She has even translated baby speak for me and Est when we pretend we don't understand. Anyway, Alana was at my home for my birthday yesterday, and the baby talk was turned up to 11. We had a large cookie for a cake, and later that night Alana presented my husband a plate and asked for a slice of the cake of cooks, a slice of cookie cake. This was too much for me, so I ordered her to quit making up terms. But it's adorable. She answered. I told her it wasn't cute and requested her to remove it. She declined, saying, "I can do anything I want and nobody can tell me what to do." To which my mother agreed. I then told her that she had to be careful not to use meaningless words in front of my 6-month-old because I wanted her to learn the correct language, which was really just an excuse to stop her from doing it. Alana pointed out that Est makes up words with her 2-year-old daughter. Est says tummer instead of tummy, but it's the only one she could think of. What Est does with her kid is unimportant, I added, since I'm the one asking Alana to stop. That may or may not be important, but I'm included it for completeness. When my husband returned with the cake, I refused to give it to Alana until she asked for it correctly. She flashed me a death stare, but she did ask, although sulkily. My AITA is twofold in this case. Was it my TA responsibility to withhold the cake until she asked for it like a grown-up? Was I TA for instructing her to stop babbling in the first place? She is, after all, a fully mature adult with the right to do whatever she wants, but I can't tell you how aggravating it is to hear meaningless talk all the time from a 27-year-old lady who has dialed it up to 11 for some reason. My mother plainly agreed with Alana. Est wasn't present, but agreed with me when she found out what had occurred, and my husband agreed with me as well. I'd want to put my foot down and tell her to stop every time, but I need Reddit's opinion on this since I'm not sure whether I'm blinded to my unreasonableness by how bothersome it is. Update 1. To answer a few questions, yes, I've discussed it with her previously, as has asked, but this is the first time I'd flatly refused to follow up on what she said. She's already used the "but you do that with your daughter" card on Est, so she obviously thinks that's a reasonable argument. The only people there were me, my mother, Alana, and my husband. It was a low-key event, so there was no large throng. Est and her husband joined via Zoom later. On Jackbox, we played Joke Boat, and I came in 5th place. Alana is normally really nice and enjoyable, but she is immature and can be quite bothersome. This quickly gets on my last nerve, and I may be harsh on her, therefore my AITA. My spouse is usually fantastic at pointing out when I'm being harsh, but he was completely on my side here. Yes, I purposefully chose the Haim sisters' names, and yes, I'm ecstatic that I get to be Danielle. Anyway, my mother just came over and we spoke. She swiftly acknowledged that it is annoyance AF, but added that Alana is working on standing up for herself, and my mother wants to encourage her. Sure, but choose your fights, I said. My mother agreed and said she'll speak to her about it when they're alone, since she believed agreeing with me in the moment would make Alana defensive and she wouldn't listen, which is probably accurate. I highlighted what other posters had stated about it being my property and my ability to ask her to stop, and she agreed and reaffirmed that she would speak with Alana. That's all I've got for now. I'm going to chat to Est about it, and I believe we'll take the talk to her seriously / treat her like an adult approach, and try to be compassionate about it. Thank you again for your remarks, Est, and I feel really validated. Update 2. Since I already said, Est and I feel very validated by the verdict and the remarks in general, as we are often advised by our mother not to be too harsh on poor Alana. It's gotten to the point where we don't tear into each other as often as we used to, which is a pity since we're English and our major love language is insults and sarcasm. Anyway, I'm digressing. On Saturday evening, Alana and my mother came over for another game of Jackbox, and Alana asked whether I liked her new jump. Your what? I answered, and she leveled me with a little smug, unblinking glare. My mother interjects, stating she means her jumper, to which Alana responds, she understands what I mean. I can say jumped if I want. Clearly, she had chosen to go all in, but I had my Reddit voices in my ear and was ready. I begged her to stop using nonsensical terms, and she told me that it's something that all millennials do, and that I needed to get over it, and that I, too, do it, using Prosec as an example, Prosecco. I disagreed, then told her I'd been Googling it, translation, asking a number of Redditors, and that it made me question if she was doing it as a response to no longer being the youngest in the family. She was enraged by this, saying she had been doing it for much longer than the birth of the children. My mother agreed with me when I stated she had been doing it much more lately. Alana was enraged by this, and continued sputtering that it wasn't true. I then said that in my Google, Reddit, research, I'd read that it may be a relief for anxiety, and asked her if this was the case. She appeared irritated at my attempting to diagnose her or turn it into a problem. In my opinion, she was attempting to be adorable and hilarious, and I was destroying it by being concerned about her well-being. She told me I was crazy for thinking it was a big issue and Googling it, and I told her she was crazy because she's way too old to be talking like a Yoda baby. I then asked her to stop if it wasn't a response to nervousness, since it irritates me a lot and I don't want to be upset when I spend out with her. I'd want to give full credit to Reddit for my phrase here. For about 20 seconds, she just gazed at me. I could see her mind racing as she attempted to come up with an excuse to say no. But in the end, my mother softly interrupted. That's a fair request, isn't it? Alana sighed heavily, defeatedly, and murmured, fine. Thank you, I murmured, and we quickly moved on. I'm hoping that's the last of it. I'm really pleased I went to Reddit for this one, since all of the advice was spot on, and I'm going to attempt to keep it in mind for future encounters with Alana.